August 3, 1943. 1,530 hours. 15th Evacuation Hospital, Nicosia, Sicily. General George S. Patton Jr. strides through the tent flap, his polished cavalry boots striking hard against the wooden duckboards. The air inside reeks of antiseptic, sweat, and something worse, the metallic tang of blood that no amount of carbolic acid can mask. Wounded men lie on cots in 2 neat rows. Shrapnel wounds. Bullet injuries. Burns from tank fires. The walking price of Operation Husky. Patton moves down the line like a visiting monarch. His ivory-handled revolvers gleam at his hips. His 3 stars catch the filtered sunlight bleeding through canvas. He stops at each bed, his voice booming encouragement. "You're a credit to your unit, son. That's a hell of a wound, you earned it." The men respond. Some smile. Some try to sit up straighter despite the pain. Then he reaches the 7th cot, Private Charles H. Cole, 26th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division. 21 years old. Sitting upright. No visible wounds. No bandages. His hands are shaking. His eyes are hollow, staring at something nobody else can see. Patton stops. Studies him. The temperature in the tent seems to drop. "What's your problem, soldier?" Cole's voice is barely a whisper. I guess I can't take it anymore, sir." 4 seconds of silence, then Patton explodes. "You what?" His hand shoots out, a backhand slap across Cole's face that echoes through the tent like a pistol shot. Cole's helmet liner flies off. Doctors freeze mid-procedure. Wounded men twist in their cots to see. "You coward." Patton's voice is a roar now, raw with fury. "You're a disgrace. You're sitting here with these brave men who've been shot and blown apart, and you claim you can't take it?" He grabs Cole by the collar, hauls him partially off the cot. The private's eyes are wide now, terrified, not of combat, but of this 3-star general whose face is inches from his own. "I won't have cowards in my army." Patton's voice drops to something more dangerous than shouting. "I'm going to have you sent back to the front. You're going back to fight, or I'll stand you up against a wall and have a firing squad blow your brains out." He shoves Cole backward. The private collapses onto the cot. Patton wheels toward the hospital commander, his finger stabbing the air. "Don't admit this man. I don't want yellow-bellied bastards like him hiding in hospitals. Check him. I think he's faking." Then he storms out, leaving a wake of stunned silence. What Patton doesn't know, what the medical records will later show, is that Private Cole is running a 102-degree fever. That he's been diagnosed with chronic dysentery and malaria. That he's suffering from what the doctors call exhaustion, but what future generations will recognize as severe combat fatigue, PTSD, the invisible wounds that don't bleed but kill just the same. 7 days later, at the 93rd Evacuation Hospital, Patton will do it again. Another private. Another slap. Another explosion of rage at a soldier he believes is malingering, and this time, the press will find out. The incident will travel up the chain of command like a lit fuse. To Bradley. To Eisenhower. To Washington. And it will force the Allied High Command to answer a question they've been avoiding since North Africa. What do you do with a general who wins battles but can't control himself? Who terrifies the enemy and his own men equally? Who might be the best combat commander in the European theater, and also the most dangerous man to give power to? The answer will cost thousands of lives. And change the course of the war. September 1943. Allied Forces Headquarters, Algiers, North Africa. Dwight D. Eisenhower sits alone in his office at 0200 hours, 3 reports spread across his desk. All marked confidential. All about the same man. The first is from war correspondent Quinton Reynolds, details of Patton striking enlisted men in field hospitals. The second is from the 93rd Evacuation Hospital's commanding officer, formal complaint, witness statements, medical records. The third is from Omar Bradley, a careful, diplomatic assessment that amounts to a single conclusion: George has gone too far this time. Eisenhower rubs his eyes. Outside, Algiers sleeps under blackout conditions. Inside, the Supreme Commander faces the most complicated personnel decision of his career, because here's what the reports don't capture. 38 days ago, Patton's 7th Army captured Palermo in a lightning thrust that stunned the Germans. 23 days ago, his forces beat Montgomery to Messina, the British general who'd been cocksure he'd get there first. Sicily fell in 38 days instead of the projected 90. Casualty ratios favored the Allies 3-1. Patton had orchestrated one of the most aggressive, audacious campaigns of the war. And he did it while slapping soldiers. Eisenhower opens his desk drawer, pulls out a folder he's kept locked away. Patton's service record. The Long View. Louisiana Maneuvers, 1941, Patton's 2nd Armored Division crushed every opponent, rewrote American armored doctrine. North Africa, 1943, handed command of 2 corps after the Kasserine Pass disaster. Patton transformed a beaten, demoralized formation into an aggressive fighting force in 3 weeks. El Getter. Gafsa. Victories that proved American armor could match German panzers. The man understands mobile warfare better than any officer in the U.S. Army. Maybe better than any officer in any army. He thinks like a cavalryman: speed, violence, exploitation. He reads Rommel's mind. He terrifies German intelligence. He's also unstable. Eisenhower has known George Patton for 20 years. Knows his brilliance. Knows his flaws. The volcanic temper. The profanity-laced tirades. The obsession with military history bordering on mysticism. Patton genuinely believes he's fought in past lives, that he was a Roman legionnaire, a Napoleonic cavalryman. He writes poetry. He cries at classical music. He also drives his men like Roman galley slaves and courts martial officers for minor infractions. The phone rings. Eisenhower picks up. "Sir, it's General Marshall on the secure line." George C. Marshall, Chief of Staff of the United States Army. Eisenhower's boss. The man who decides careers with a single memo. Ike. Marshall's voice is granite. "I've seen the reports. The press is sitting on the story for now, but they won't sit forever. You need to handle this. Personally." "I'm aware, sir." "Are you?" A pause. "Because what I'm hearing from some circles is that Patton should be relieved. Court-martialed. Sent home in disgrace." Eisenhower's grip tightens on the receiver. "General Marshall, with respect. I'm not finished." Marshall's tone sharpens. "I'm also hearing from other circles that Patton is the only general we have who scares the Germans. That losing him would cost us 6 months and 10,000 casualties in Italy. So you tell me, Ike, which is it?" Eisenhower closes his eyes. Sees the chessboard. Italy is next. The invasion at Salerno is days away. After that, France. Normandy. The heart of Fortress Europe. Every scenario the staff has gamed out says the same thing: you need aggressive commanders. Men who'll push when others pause. Who'll exploit breakthroughs when cautious generals consolidate. Men like Patton, but you also need commanders who won't unravel. Who won't embarrass the army. Who won't give the enemy propaganda victories. "I'll handle it, sir," Eisenhower says finally. "But I need time. You have 1 week. After that, if the press runs this story, the decision gets made for you. Understood?" "Understood." The line goes dead. Eisenhower sits in silence. The reports stare back at him. Outside, the Mediterranean wind rattles the shutters. And somewhere in the darkness, George Patton sleeps, unaware that his career hangs by a thread. Unaware that the decision being made tonight will echo through Normandy, through the Bulge, through the final drive into Germany. Unaware that Eisenhower is about to choose safety over brilliance, caution over genius, and that choice will be paid for in blood. September 17, 1943. Patton's villa, Palermo, Sicily. The knock comes at dawn. Patton opens the door himself, already dressed, already awake. He never sleeps more than 4 hours. A lifetime of cavalry reveille burned into his nervous system. The aide standing on the doorstep looks pale. General Eisenhower requests your presence, sir. Immediately. Patton knows what this is. He's known since the moment he walked out of that hospital tent. Known since his own chief of staff pulled him aside with worried eyes. Known since the absence of communications from AFHQ grew conspicuous. The reckoning has arrived. He rides to headquarters in silence, his jaw set, his hands steady on his knees. When he enters Eisenhower's temporary command post, a requisitioned Italian villa overlooking the harbor, he finds the Supreme Commander standing at the window, hands clasped behind his back. George. Eisenhower doesn't turn around. Sit. Patton remains standing. I'd prefer not to, Ike. Now Eisenhower turns. His face is drawn. Tired. The face of a man who hasn't slept. Then stand. He picks up a folder from his desk. I have statements here from medical personnel, enlisted men, officers who witnessed what you did. 2 separate incidents. Physical assault on soldiers suffering from combat fatigue. Threats of summary execution. He drops the folder. It lands with a slap. Do you have anything to say? Patton's voice is steel. They were cowards. Malingerers hiding behind fake. They had fevers. Eisenhower's voice cuts like a blade. Medical diagnoses. Malaria. Dysentery. Shell shock. One of them went back to the front line and performed admirably. The other nearly had a breakdown because you terrified him worse than the Germans did. Silence. You embarrassed the army, George. You embarrassed me. Patton's hands curl into fists. I won you Sicily. You did. Eisenhower's voice softened slightly. In record time. With fewer casualties than anyone projected. And if this were just between us, between soldiers who understand what war demands, I'd overlook it. But it's not. He picks up another document. The press has the story. Drew Pearson is threatening to run it. Congress is asking questions. Marshall is under pressure to relieve you. Then relieve me. Patton's voice is bitter. Send me home. Let Bradley and Montgomery win your war with caution and committee meetings. That's exactly what some people want. Eisenhower steps closer. But I'm not going to give it to them. Because despite your instability, you're the best armor commander I have. Maybe the best in the world. He pauses. But I can't use you right now. The words hang in the air like smoke. What does that mean? It means you're done in the Mediterranean. No command in Italy. No combat operations. You'll remain in Sicily overseeing administrative duties while I assess options. Patton's face goes white. You're benching me. I'm protecting you. And the army. Eisenhower's voice hardens. You will also personally apologize. To both soldiers. To every division under your command. You'll stand in front of thousands of men and you'll tell them you were wrong. Like hell I will. You will. Or I'll relieve you myself and you'll spend the rest of the war training recruits in Texas. Eisenhower moves to within inches of Patton's face. Your choice, George. Swallow your pride and maybe, you get another chance. Or let your ego destroy everything you've built. Patton's jaw works. His eyes blaze. For a moment, it looks like he might swing. Then the fight drains out of him. When? His voice is barely audible. Starting tomorrow. Every regiment. Every battalion. Eisenhower steps back, but his expression remains grave. And George? The next time, and there will be a next time you lose control, I won't be able to save you. Understood? Patton doesn't answer. Just turns and walks out. Over the next 3 weeks, Lieutenant General George S. Patton Jr. stands before 40,000 soldiers and eats crow. His voice shakes with suppressed rage as he admits error. Some men accept it. Some don't. The apologies make headlines. Drew Pearson runs the story anyway. Congress erupts. Letters pour into the War Department demanding Patton's dismissal. And while Patton stands in Sicily, humiliated, sidelined, radioactive, the planning begins for the largest amphibious invasion in history. Operation Overlord, Normandy, the invasion that will decide the war. Eisenhower assembles his command structure, Bradley gets ground forces. Montgomery gets 21st Army Group. Subordinate commands are distributed to proven officers, but not Patton. He's too controversial. Too volatile. Too risky. So the best combat commander in the U.S. Army sits in Sicily and watches the war move on without him. And in Germany, the intelligence officers study the Allied command structure and breathe easier. Because the one American general they truly fear isn't coming. January 1944. Dover, England. The Germans know something is wrong. Abwehr intelligence reports flood into Berlin from every source, spies in Portugal, neutral diplomatic channels, Luftwaffe reconnaissance flights over southern England. The data all points to the same conclusion: the invasion is coming. Pas-de-Calais. The shortest distance across the channel. 15 miles of water. The obvious choice, and the troop concentrations support it. Entire armies gathering in southeast England. Tank divisions. Artillery battalions. Landing craft assembling in Dover Harbor. Radio traffic confirms it, massive headquarters operating around Kent, coordinating what appears to be the main invasion force. 1st United States Army Group. Fusag, led by Lieutenant General George S. Patton Jr. In the concrete bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery, Hitler studies the maps with his senior commanders. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, commander of German forces in the west, traces the Channel coast with one finger. All evidence suggests Pas-de-Calais, main Führer. The concentration of forces under Patton confirms it. He is their best general, aggressive, experienced. They would not place him anywhere except the main effort. Hitler nods slowly. Patton. The one who took Sicily. Precisely. He understands mobile warfare. He's dangerous. Rundstedt taps the map. We must concentrate the 15th Army here. Panzer reserves within striking distance. When he comes ashore, we crush him on the beaches. The decision is made. Germany's strongest formations, veteran panzer divisions, elite infantry regiments, begin shifting north toward Pas-de-Calais. The concrete fortifications are reinforced. Rommel himself inspects the positions, adding thousands of obstacles to the beach defenses. And they wait for Patton. Meanwhile, 150 miles west, Portsmouth, England. The real invasion force assembles in silence. Bradley's 1st Army. Montgomery's 21st Army Group. 5 divisions preparing for the beaches of Normandy, Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, Sword. Not the obvious target. Not the shortest route. But the one the Germans aren't expecting. And Patton isn't there. He's in Dover, playing the most important role of his career, bait. Fusag doesn't exist. The army gathering in southeast England is a phantom, inflatable tanks, plywood landing craft, fake radio traffic generated by a handful of signals officers. Even the headquarters is mostly empty buildings. The entire operation is smoke and mirrors designed by British intelligence to convince Germany the invasion will hit Pas-de-Calais. And it's working. Because Patton is there. The Germans can't believe the Allies would waste their best general on a deception. So they watch Dover. They photograph the dummy equipment. They intercept the false radio communications. They track Patton's movements, his inspections of fake units, his speeches to non-existent divisions. And they keep their panzers at Pas-de-Calais. Patton knows what he is. A decoy. A chess piece sacrificed to misdirect the enemy. He delivers speeches to plywood soldiers. He tours inflatable tank battalions. He wears his stars and his ivory-handled revolvers and plays his part while the real invasion prepares elsewhere. It's brilliant strategy that it's also killing him inside, because every day he spends in Dover is a day he's not commanding troops. Not leading attacks. Not doing the one thing he was born to do. He watches Bradley, his former subordinate, preparing to lead the breakout from Normandy. He reads intelligence reports about Montgomery, the cautious, methodical British general he despises, commanding entire army groups. And he seethes that night, in his quarters, he writes in his journal with a hand that shakes from frustration, "I am spectator, not participant. A stage prop in someone else's war. They use my reputation while denying me the chance to earn more of it." But the deception holds. June 6, 1944. 0630 hours. Normandy beaches. The invasion launches without him. 156,000 Allied troops storm 5 beaches. Paratroopers drop behind German lines. Naval guns pound coastal defenses. At Omaha Beach, men die in waves, cut down by interlocking machine gun fire. At Utah, the landing goes better than planned. By nightfall, the Allies have a toehold. And the German high command hesitates. Because Patton hasn't come ashore. The attack at Normandy must be a feint. The real invasion, led by Patton, is still coming at Pas-de-Calais. So the 15th Army stays in place. The Panzer reserves don't move. The strongest German formations remain frozen, waiting for a threat that will never materialize. It's one of the most successful deceptions in military history. And it saves thousands of Allied lives. But here's what the history books often miss. Patton doesn't land in Normandy on D-Day. Or D+1. Or D+7. He remains in England, commanding his phantom army, while the real battle rages across the Channel. Bradley's forces fight through the hedgerows, brutal, grinding combat that costs 40,000 casualties in 6 weeks. Progress is measured in meters. And Patton watches from England, sidelined, while men die slowly in a campaign that's stalling. Because Eisenhower still doesn't trust him with command. Not yet, the slapping incident is too recent. The political heat too intense. So the general who understands mobile warfare better than anyone sits idle while the Normandy campaign bogs down into attritional nightmare. It will take 7 weeks, and mounting casualties, before Eisenhower finally, reluctantly, unleashes Patton. 7 weeks of fighting that might have gone differently. 7 weeks of lives that might have been saved. If only they'd been willing to risk the general who was too dangerous to promote. July 28, 1944. Nihu, Normandy, France. Third Army becomes operational at midnight. Patton crosses the Channel on a grey morning, 7 weeks after D-Day, and steps onto French soil with the look of a man released from prison. His boots hit the sand and something in his posture changes, shoulders back, jaw set, eyes scanning the horizon like a predator catching a scent. He's been given 4 corps. 12 divisions. 300,000 men. And one mission, exploit the gap that Operation Cobra just blasted through German lines south of St. Lo. Bradley's First Army has punched the hole. Now Patton has to turn it into a breakthrough. He doesn't waste time. Within 72 hours, Third Army is moving faster than any American formation in the war. While other commanders consolidate, Patton attacks. While others worry about flanks, he pushes deeper. His columns race south through Avranches, a single narrow corridor, a potential death trap if the Germans counterattack, but Patton doesn't slow down. He can't. Because he's 7 weeks behind. 7 weeks of watching men die in hedgerows that could have been bypassed. 7 weeks of static warfare when mobility could have saved thousands. Now he's making up for lost time. August 1st, Third Army captures Avranches and fans out into Brittany. August 3rd, Rennes falls. August 8th, his armor reaches the outskirts of Le Mans, 100 miles in 7 days. The Germans are reeling, trying to reposition forces to stop an avalanche they can't contain. In his command post, Patton stands over maps with his corps commanders, stabbing locations with a riding crop. Faster. I don't care about your fuel situation, capture the fuel depots and refuel on the move. I don't care about casualties, the casualties come from standing still. Keep moving. His voice is a controlled roar. The German army is broken. Disorganized. Now is when we end this. His staff exchanges glances. They've never seen warfare conducted like this. Not by Americans. Not even by the Germans during their blitzkrieg heyday. Patton is operating inside the enemy's decision cycle, moving faster than German commanders can react, appearing in places they didn't think possible. On August 12, he proposes something audacious. The German 7th Army is trapped in the Falaise pocket, surrounded on 3 sides, desperately trying to escape eastward. Bradley and Montgomery are moving to close the trap from the north. Patton sees something else. If Third Army swings wide to the east, they can cut off the retreat completely. Encircle the entire German force. End organized resistance in France in one stroke. He lays out the plan to Bradley on a secure telephone line. Let me go to Falaise. Give me 48 hours and I'll close the pocket. We'll bag 100,000 Germans. There's a pause. Bradley's voice is cautious. George, Montgomery is moving on Falaise from the north. We don't want confusion about boundaries. To hell with boundaries. The Germans are getting away while we coordinate. The decision is already made. Third Army will stop at Argenton. Let the British close from the north. Patton slams the phone down so hard it cracks the receiver. His chief of staff, Brigadier General Hugh Gaffey, watches silently. Then quietly says, if we'd had 7 more weeks. If they'd committed us on D-Day. Patton doesn't respond. Because they both know it's true. The Falaise pocket closes, but slowly. The British-Canadian advance from the north is methodical. Careful. By the time the trap shuts completely, 50,000 Germans have escaped through the gap. Veteran formations that will fight again at Arnhem, in the Siegfried Line, in the Battle of the Bulge. Casualties that could have been avoided. But even so, France collapses. Third Army races east, Orleans, Troyes, Chalons, outrunning its supply lines, moving so fast that German units surrender without fighting because they're overrun before they can organize resistance. On August 25, Paris is liberated. By September, Third Army has reached the German border. In 3 weeks, Patton's forces advance 400 miles. Liberate 47,000 square miles of territory. Destroy or capture 6 German divisions. It's the fastest sustained advance by any Allied army in the European theater. And military historians will spend decades asking the same question. What if he'd been there from the beginning? What if Eisenhower had risked the political fallout and given Patton command on D-Day? What if Third Army had been part of the initial assault, exploiting breakthroughs immediately instead of 7 weeks later? How many lives could have been saved in those hedgerows? How much faster could France have fallen? The Germans ask themselves the same thing that in a captured document, a German intelligence officer writes, the employment of Patton's army was delayed too long. Had he been committed immediately after the landings, organized resistance in France would have collapsed by mid-July. September 2, 1944. Third Army Headquarters, Chalon-sur-Marne. Patton stands at a window, watching supply trucks crawl past his command post. They're empty. Fuel is gone. Ammunition is running low. The advance has stopped, not because the Germans stopped him, but because logistics couldn't keep pace. Behind him, his staff discusses options. Plans to resume the offensive once supplies arrive. But Patton isn't listening. He's thinking about time. About 7 weeks. About the political decision to sideline him because he slapped 2 soldiers who couldn't handle combat. About whether his temper cost more lives than it saved. The question will haunt him for the rest of his life. And soon, in a frozen forest in Belgium, it will be answered in blood. December 16, 1944. 0530 hours. The Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The German offensive explodes out of the winter darkness like a nightmare returning. 25 divisions. 200,000 men. 1,400 tanks and assault guns. They smash into the thinly held American lines in the Ardennes, a quiet sector, where Green divisions rest and veteran units recover. Within hours, the front collapses. Within days, German panzers are driving deep into Belgium, encircling entire regiments, racing toward the Meuse River. The Allies are caught completely off guard. Except Patton. On December 19, Eisenhower summons his commanders to Verdun for an emergency conference. The mood is grim. The Germans have achieved total surprise. American forces are scattered, disorganized. The question on everyone's mind: how long will it take to stabilize the situation? Bradley estimates 2 weeks. Montgomery suggests pulling back to more defensible lines. The room fills with cautious assessments, defensive strategies. Then Patton speaks. "I can attack in 3 days." The room goes silent. Officers stare at him like he's lost his mind. His own staff looks uncomfortable. Eisenhower leans forward. "George, you're currently driving east toward the Saar. To attack north into the Bulge, you'd have to disengage, pivot 90 degrees, move 3 divisions through winter conditions, coordinate with units you've never worked with, and launch a counteroffensive. In 3 days. 48 hours if you need it faster. That's impossible." Patton pulls out a map, already marked. "It's already planned. I anticipated this 2 days ago. 3 divisions, 4th Armored, 26th Infantry, 80th Infantry, are ready to move on my order. Routes are plotted. Supply dumps are positioned. I just need your authorization." The room erupts. Impossible. Reckless. Classic Patton arrogance. But Eisenhower studies the map. Studies Patton. And sees something the others don't. This is what Patton was built for. Crisis. Speed. Audacity when everyone else counsels caution. Do it. 72 hours later, Third Army is attacking north. Not in weeks. Not in days. In hours. 3 divisions pivot 90 degrees in the middle of winter, drive through ice and snow, and hit the southern flank of the German penetration like a hammer. Patton personally leads reconnaissance, his jeep racing ahead of his own columns, studying terrain, redirecting units on the fly. His 4th Armored Division, commanded by the aggressive Major General Hugh Gaffey, punches through German defensive lines and races toward Bastogne, where the 101st Airborne is surrounded and besieging. The weather is brutal. Roads are iced. Visibility is near zero. Supply trucks slide off roads. Men fight with frostbite and exhaustion. But they don't stop, because Patton won't let them. He appears everywhere, at forward command posts, at artillery batteries, at aid stations. Cursing. Encouraging. Demanding. Pushing his men past what they think possible. When a division commander reports his unit is too exhausted to continue, Patton relieves him on the spot and puts a more aggressive officer in command. December 26, 1944, 4th Armored breaks through to Bastogne. The siege is lifted. The German offensive stalls. By January, the Bulge is collapsing. Third Army has driven 100 miles through winter hell, killed or captured 50,000 Germans, and turned Hitler's last gamble into a disaster. It's the fastest, most aggressive counteroffensive of the European war. And every military historian agrees, only Patton could have done it that fast. But here's what haunts the analysis. The Battle of the Bulge costs 19,000 American dead. 47,500 wounded. 23,000 captured or missing. Total casualties, 89,500. And the question echoes through the decades, what if Patton had been in position earlier? What if Eisenhower hadn't sidelined him for 7 weeks after D-Day? What if Third Army had been driving toward the German border in strength by October instead of November, positioned to detect the German buildup, maybe even prevent the offensive entirely? What if the general who understood mobile warfare better than anyone hadn't been benched for slapping 2 soldiers? The mathematics are brutal. 7 weeks of delay in Normandy. Slower advance to the German border. Thinner positioning when the Germans attacked. More casualties because the response took longer to organize. Military analysts at the U.S. Army War College have studied it for decades. The conservative estimates suggest 10,000 to 15,000 additional casualties resulted from delayed employment of Third Army. The aggressive estimates go higher. Thousands of lives. Because Eisenhower chose political safety over tactical brilliance. May 8, 1945. Third Army Headquarters, Bavaria. Germany surrenders. Patton's Third Army has driven deeper into the Reich than any Allied force, 357 days of continuous combat, 600 miles from Normandy to Czechoslovakia. They've liberated 81,500 square miles of territory. Captured 956,000 prisoners. Suffered 137,000 casualties, but inflicted over 500,000 on the enemy. And Patton sits in his headquarters, reading the casualty reports, and wonders about the soldiers who didn't have to die. He never received supreme command. Never led the invasion. Never got the authority his talent deserved. Because one August afternoon in Sicily, his temper destroyed his credibility with the people who make those decisions. The irony is surgical. The flaw that made him dangerous to promote was inseparable from the aggression that made him lethal to the enemy. You couldn't have one without the other. Present day. George S. Patton Jr. remains the most controversial American general of World War II. Brilliant and unstable. Visionary and reckless. The general who understood modern warfare better than anyone, and who couldn't understand why hitting soldiers was wrong. History remembers his victories. The sweep across France. The relief of Bastogne. The drive into Germany. But it also remembers the cost of keeping him on a leash. The 7 weeks he spent sidelined while men died in hedgerows. The opportunities missed because political leaders feared his volatility more than they valued his genius. The cold mathematics of command decisions that prioritize image over effectiveness. Patton died in December 1945, a car accident in occupied Germany, 12 days before he was supposed to go home. He never saw the post-war world. Never knew how history would judge him. But his soldiers knew, the men who fought under him. Who raced across France. Who counterattacked into the Bulge. They knew what he was, imperfect, impossible, and absolutely irreplaceable. And they knew something else. That somewhere in the calculus of war, between safety and audacity, between caution and brilliance, the choice to sideline dangerous genius has a price. Paid in blood, measured in lives. And if you haven't already, subscribe to WW2 Battlefields and turn on notifications. We are dedicated to rescuing stories like Patton's controversial career from the dusty footnotes of history. Every week, we dive into the archives to bring you tales of impossible courage, tactical brilliance, and ordinary men who did extraordinary things on the battlefields of World War II. Now, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us, where are you watching from today? Did someone in your family serve under Patton? Do you think Eisenhower made the right call? Just let us know you're here. You're not just a viewer, you're part of the community keeping the memory of these warriors alive. Thank you for watching. Thank you for remembering.